This is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by West Virginia University, offering education, healthcare, and the opportunity to achieve career success since 1867. Information at wvu.edu. Embassy Suites by Hilton Charleston, an all-suite hotel and conference center minutes from Yeager Airport and Capital Market. Reservations and brasserie dining information available at hilton.com.
Solar Holler, supporting Appalachian communities and building on West Virginia's history of powering the nation by bringing solar energy and battery backup to homeowners, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the region. More at solarholler.com.
Welcome to the Legislature Today. I'm Curtis Tate. Against the backdrop of legislative action, much of the state is reeling from massive flooding. Governor Patrick Morrisey this morning confirmed the flood-related deaths of 2 people in McDowell County. He has sent a letter to President Donald Trump requesting disaster assistance for 13 West Virginia counties. Members of the House of Delegates and Senate, along with staff, are collecting donations for flood relief. Delegates Ryan Browning and Scott Heckert have covered trailers set up in the courtyard of the Capitol complex to receive donations. Everything collected will be delivered to Harvest Center in Logan County and distributed to flood victims from there. Among the items requested, water, cleaning supplies, baby wipes and diapers, personal hygiene products, canned food, baby food, including chocolate Pediasure, and pet food. In the legislature, bills go through 3 votes on 3 separate days. On the second reading of the bill, legislators are able to offer up amendments to the bill. Today in the Senate, a bill that would allow for broader vaccine exemptions for schools hit that second reading stage. Brianna Heaney has more.
This bill is one of the first bills to reach the Senate floor. It makes it easier for parents to receive an exemption to school vaccine requirements. 4 amendments were introduced. The amendments came from Republicans and Democrats, but none passed. The first amendment was introduced by Senator Ryan Weld, a Republican from Brooke County, and co-sponsored by Senator Mike Woelfel, a Democrat from Cabell County. It would have allowed private schools and child care centers to continue to require vaccines as a requirement for enrollment. Woelfel, who is Catholic, said the bill would violate religious freedoms by forcing religious institutions to accept unvaccinated children.
The bishop has indicated clearly that his diocese will choose not to accept unvaccinated students. Will choose not to accept unvaccinated students.
He says without the amendment, the bill could be unconstitutional. The bill originates from the Senate Health Committee. Senator Jack Woodrum, a Republican from Summers County, questioned the chair of that committee, Senator Laura Chapman, a Republican from Ohio County, about the constitutionality of the bill.
If we're requiring them to take an unvaccinated student against the policy that they would prefer to have, is this any different than, say, the argument with the Christian bakery requiring them to bake a cake? So is this, what's the difference there? I mean,
absolutely. We require private and parochial schools to have sprinkler systems and exits, so in case there's a fire, children can escape.
Roland Roberts, a Republican from Raleigh County, said he thought the amendment was disingenuous. He said the law would protect religious freedom, not restrict it. Ultimately, the amendment was rejected. Woelfel asked for an amendment that would give the polio vaccine an exemption, meaning the polio vaccine would have still been required.
It's a demon. Polio is a demon. Are we going to stand up and give polio a chance to come back in West Virginia? Polio.
Senator Patricia Rucker, a Republican from Jefferson County, urged senators to vote no to the amendment. She asserted that the polio vaccines comes from aborted fetuses. However, according to a pro-life organization, the Charlotte Lozer Institute, that is not currently true. That amendment failed. Senator Joey Garcia, a Democrat from Marion County, asked for an amendment that would require private, public, and parochial schools and child care centers to create a report laying out the numbers of what percentage of children in that facility are receiving a vaccination exemption.
If this is the policy, give the citizens the right to make this informed decision about something that can affect their health and their lives.
Objections came from members of the Health Committee, who raised concerns about burdening schools with more paperwork and concerns about medical privacy. That amendment failed. This vaccine bill was similar but more extensive than a bill passed by the legislature last year. That last bill was vetoed by Governor Jim Justice. It was also more extensive than the bill that came from Governor Patrick Morrisey's office. Members of the Senate say the bill will likely receive a final vote on Friday. Then it heads to the House of Delegates. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Brianna Heaney at the Capitol.
On the House floor, delegates adopted a resolution rejecting the redesignation of part of a Potomac River tributary. House Concurrent Resolution 49 would oppose redesignating a portion of the Potomac beginning at Maryland's Savage River from a cold water aquatic life zone to a warm water aquatic life zone. The Maryland Department of the Environment has sought to expand cold water zones to protect aquatic species threatened by climate change. Lead sponsor Gary Howell, a Republican from Mineral County, said the designation would hurt local industrial projects because it would require them to monitor the temperature of their discharges into the local water supply. The House passed the resolution by a verbal majority vote, sending it to the Senate for further consideration. Some of the first bills discussed in the Senate Education Committee this year are trying to address the ongoing issue of staffing in West Virginia's schools. Chris Schultz has more.
Much attention has been paid to the state's teacher shortage, but schools have struggled to staff other positions in recent years as well. Senate Bill 275 looks to remove a requirement that school cooks or custodians have a high school diploma or equivalent. Of course, teacher shortages remain an issue, and Senate Bill 282 would extend to 2030 provisions that allow retired teachers to work as substitutes without impacting their existing benefits. The rule only applies to retirees working in areas of critical need, like reading, math, foreign language, or special education. Senator Mike Oliverio, a Republican from Monongalia County, said the issue of getting people to work in the state's schools is a recurring theme.
Last year, we had a problem with bus drivers, so we took off the high school graduation requirement, but we still required the CDL. The bill we just passed is an effort to increase the number of folks in our kitchens at our schools. What this bill does is really critical because we cannot get enough substitutes. And so this is allowing those retired teachers to come back into the system and sub.
The other two bills discussed by the committee were not directly related to staffing issues, but discussion still circled back to that critical issue. Senate Bill 283 allows high school students to complete personal finance course requirements needed for graduation starting in 9th grade. Senator Robbie Morris, a Republican from Randolph County, expressed concern the bill may create an unfunded mandate to hire staff needed to cover an expanded course load. Committee Chair Senator Amy Grady, a Republican from Mason County, said the expansion is meant to ease an unintended scheduling issue created by the original 2023 bill.
When we passed this originally, it was in their 12th grade year. And so that was providing some problems with scheduling and also with figuring out, you have all these seniors who have to take this personal finance course and how can they do it in one single year. Right. So expanding it to any time during their high school career would allow more flexibility schedule-wise. The
day's final bill, Senate Bill 122, would establish a minimum enrollment of 1,200 students for each county school funding formula calculations. State code already makes adjustments in the funding formula for school districts with enrollment below 1,400 students. As a result of the proposed legislation, Calhoun, Gilmer, and Wirt counties would receive roughly $2 million more in state funding. Legislative leaders have highlighted the school funding formula as a focus of a more comprehensive overhaul in the coming years. All four bills were approved by the committee and sent to the Senate floor for further discussion. For the Legislature Today, I'm Chris Schultz.
Earlier today, Eric Douglas spoke with Senator Randy Smith, a Republican from Preston County. Smith was elected Senate President for for the 87th legislature this year.
Welcome to the Legislature Today. I'm Eric Douglas. I'm here on the set with Senator Randy Smith of Preston County, to be clear. Senator Smith is now the Senate President, Lieutenant Governor. Should something happen, you would step up into the governorship as well. Senator Smith, I'm not sure. Actually, no. Let me ask this a different way. Tell us, give me the 2-minute version of who you are.
Well, I'm foremost, I consider myself a man of God, but I'm a family man, a very family-oriented person, and that's why I'm here, is because, I have 2 children, 11 grandchildren, and I got into politics because I wanted a better environment in West Virginia. I wanted to try to create jobs, fix roads. I'm a big roads guy. If you know me very well, I'm passionate about, our infrastructure, our roads and broadband. I've always been a big broadband person, but most of all, economic development. I wanted to make sure we created opportunities that would not only keep my kids and grandkids here in West Virginia, but everybody, that had children in West Virginia, because it's been a problem for years. Our children and grandchildren have to leave West Virginia to find good jobs. And I wanted to be a part of that, to try to solve that problem, to make it, where these young people wanted to stay here.
I heard you speak last week, and I think you said your son is the one who talked you into...
Yeah, I get on him all the time. He's the one who got me into this mess. But, he's always been passionate about, he's a small business owner. He owns, I think, 3 small businesses. And, he's passionate about the state. And, he works with a lot of young people. And, and it's just... I've got 2 wonderful kids, and they love West Virginia. Married my high school sweetheart.
But you're a coal miner.
I was. Yeah.
Well, okay. Do you ever stop being a coal miner?
No. Once you're a coal miner, always a
Right.
coal miner. It's some of the greatest people you're ever going to meet. They can solve any problem. A coal miner can solve any problem. It just because. You're underground, you're away from everything, you can fix anything, and it's just, it's an honorable profession, hardworking men and women, and, a lot of people think I should be ashamed of being, that I was a coal miner all those years. But I wasn't just a coal miner. My wife and I have a small business.
Okay.
We're small business owners. We run a small business. My wife runs a computerized embroidery business, and I'm a licensed trout producer in the state of West Virginia. We got a lot of interest. Avid fly fisherman. I love fly fishing, but since I became a senator, I don't have a whole lot of time because, I have such a large district that I represent. Sure. Now, with the Senate President, I can't see me having any more time to do that. So
we'll have to figure out a legislative break to get you up on the river somewhere.
If you can find a legislative break, you let me know, because there's something always going on. I represent 6 counties now. Used to represent 8, now represent 6. So I'm always someplace.
I wanted to ask you, when you were first elected Senate President after the caucuses back in December, one of the comments you first made is you expected to address a lot of social issues pretty quickly.
Yeah, they're always social issues.
What's on your mind? What are?
Well, it kind of gets discouraging because there's very few. If you look at the grand scheme of things, the bills that we run out, like last year, I think we passed 300 bills, maybe a little over 300 bills, and probably, less than 1% of them was social bills. But them are the ones that gets all the attention, because that's it sells newspapers, it sells airtime. That's what people want to see. They want to see the friction between legislators on different issues and stuff. It's just the society we live in.
So that doesn't sound like to me then that's not the things that do you really want to address?
No, I mean, you have to address because you got to do the will of the caucus. You know, I have a new caucus. I'm new, new in leadership. I have 10 new members, 10 new senators.
That's a third of the Senate. Yeah.
And I'm about to get, with the appointment of Senator Stewart, to the Trump administration. We're going to get another new senator sometime. It might not be this legislative session. We don't know because, we don't know when he's going to be confirmed. Right. He's got to go through that process. But with that many new members, first of all, you don't know where they stand on a lot of issues. You know what they ran on when they was campaigning, because a lot of that was social issues that they were elected because of their stance on social issues and economic development. It takes a while to get the feel of the caucus, what they, what their passions are, what they're passionate about, what they don't have, the stomach for this. But everybody comes down here going to change the world in 60 days. But the more seasoned legislators know that's not the way it works. So it's a working process, that they've got to learn the process, just like any other job.
Sure, that makes sense. You mentioned the things you do believe in, the economic developments and finding ways to keep kids here so they don't leave. I assume that also means attracting new people to move to West Virginia, or those who've moved away to get them to move back home. What are some of your plans for the session this year?
Well, as always, we have, we have a lot of economic development projects that are in the working, and a lot of times, it might be something to deal with regulations. We have a regulation that is in the road where, these projects won't come in. Sometimes, it's workforce, participation is a huge problem that we're constantly working on, trying to get our workforce participation up. And so, dealing with the problems or the issues that is keeping these businesses from wanting to locate into West Virginia. And we're competing against, sometimes all 50 states and definitely our surrounding states. So, we look at that, if we lose a company to one state, we look at it and, what did they do to get this business to keep them from instead of coming to West Virginia, why did they go to Kentucky? Why did they go to Pennsylvania, Maryland, Ohio, or surrounding states? And you try to see what that problem is, and then you try to fix it where you're more competitive with a surrounding state to try to attract the projects in.
You mentioned again when you were talking a moment ago, broadband, that was a driving issue for you, or an important issue for you.
I like to say that I was broadband before broadband was cool. I was first elected in 2012. It was dial up, and fiber was just coming, and I always said we would never prosper as a state until we got broadband, because our education system isn't going to be what it needs to be until we have broadband clear across the state, affordable high-speed internet. And same way with if you're going to attract businesses, you have to have high-speed internet. And it's something as simple as maybe, someone has a Amazon store or a eBay, selling on eBay, just to supplement their income. Broadband's important on that. So broadband opens up so many doors with economic development and education both. So
sure. The state's set to receive a little over $1 billion, I remember. Or the whole package was about $1 billion for broadband development.
1.2 billion, I believe.
Do we know where that stands?
Well, we got a new administration at the federal level, so I think it's kind of been put on hold till they. And then as a state, The problem is a lot of our broadband development now is going to be in the very, very rural areas where you might go 2 miles to pick up 2 houses or 3 houses or, you know, even a dozen houses. And all these grants require that the provider, you know, puts matching funds in there, you know, like let's say up to 25%. I think that was one of the problems with this new money, the $1.2 billion, is 25%. Well, a provider to go get 3 or 4 houses, if it costs $1 million to get back there, then he's not going to put out, he can't afford, or they can't afford as a company to put out 25%. So that's the problems we're trying to work through. To get that money, they have to have the matching funds. Now, do we match them or help them, you know, and we're, you know, asking the federal government to maybe reduce that to like 10 or 15% matching fund because it's just not feasible as a business model for these companies to do that. So that's a problem with the broadband, you know, with the matching funds, because we're a very rural state, and some of these people, to serve them, we're going to have to get very creative, and, you know, and the state might have to have skin in, you know, more skin in the game, as well as the providers. And, you know, it'd be nice if the federal government would say, well, all right, we're going to reduce that down to 15% or 10%, and then it becomes feasible to do that. So,
you know, we've all been through the pandemic, but we all found out during the pandemic how important it was for kids to have access to internet for studying, for you know, online research and that kind of stuff.
Well, even our people working from home. Sure. You know, there was people that was driving to the local McDonald's or the local library parking lot so they could get service, you know, internet service, so they could work supposedly from home, but they were sitting in a McDonald's parking lot someplace. So, you know, it's important. That's a very important part of our economic development is broadband.
Another big issue that's kind of dogged the state the last few years, and probably a decade, the child care, foster care issues. Are we going to attack that this year, or what are we going to do?
Yeah, you know, we try to attack it every year, you know, and we've, you know, the House is doing a lot of work. You know, they're having hearings, and, you know, certain things like the Senate will take the lead on, you know, trying to solve that problem, or we'll take the lead on trying to solve that problem. You know, we work together as two bodies, which is, you know, crucial. If we're going to solve the problems, we got to work together as both houses and with the governor. But, you know, I have a huge desire to protect our children, no matter what it is, because our children and our elderly are the most vulnerable. So I'm big with senior services, and I'm also big with, you know, the child. Our CPS system is just, you know, it's in shambles, and, you know, that's got to be fixed. And, you know, a lot of it is coming from our drug problem that we have here in the state, or substance abuse problem. You know, I started a committee. That was one of the first things I did when I got elected Senate President, was started a substance abuse mental health committee, because if we could solve that problem, we could solve so many of our social problems with, you know, domestic violence, child abuse, you know, foster care, all that. Most of the time, all that goes right back to the substance abuse problem. And, you know, I've put a committee together with that. Senator Helton is the chairman of that, and that committee is going across the state, and they've been very active, and no longer they've been operating, that they're going to these treatment centers, and what we're trying to find the ones that work. You know, we found one in Preston County. It was almost an 80% success rate. That's just unbelievable. And then we got so many that we're pouring money in that it's doing no good.
The answer is not just
no, it's just
there's
not
money, but
there's
it's not
money, you know. And we've got the opioid money now, you know, from the lawsuit settlement, and we want to make sure that we're spending that money as wisely on programs that actually work, instead of just saying, well, you know, we put $20 million into it, you know, we're trying to fix the problem. Well, you can't always fix your problems with money. Right. And even in, you know, with child care, the problems we have, you know, you just can't throw money into it. You got to have a plan. You got to have policies that work. And you know, the easy answer is just give it money and, you know, it'll fix itself. And most of the time money causes corruption, and, you know, I mean, nobody, you know, like the opioid, it's gotten a lot better since.
Right. Sir, we're out of time,
okay,
but I appreciate it, and you're welcome to come back to talk to us on the legislature anytime. I hope
All right,
you, hope you make
it.
the point of it. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. It was good being here. Thank you.
That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Catch the Legislature Today Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. And remember, West Virginia Public Broadcasting covers the session daily in our radio news program, West Virginia Morning, and on our news site at wvpublic.org. We also broadcast the daily floor sessions of both the House and the Senate on the West Virginia channel. I'm Curtis Tate. Good evening, and see you again here tomorrow.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by West Virginia University, offering education, healthcare, and the opportunity to achieve career success since 1867. Information at wvu.edu. Embassy Suites by Hilton Charleston, an all-suite hotel and conference center minutes from Yeager Airport and Capital Market. Reservations and brasserie dining information available at hilton.com.
Solar Holler, supporting Appalachian communities and building on West Virginia's history of powering the nation by bringing solar energy and battery backup to homeowners, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the region. More at solarholler.com.